Episode 4, man. We made it, yo. We made it. Ain't nobody try to come for me or nothing like that. So we here. So again, your favorite segment, how to approach women. I talk about how mixtapes are not really mixtapes. And I talk about how people get nostalgic about writing letters and they don't write letters. So, yo, again, welcome back. I appreciate the support and the love. Check it out. Yo, for this episode, I'm just sipping on just good old Bacardi, right rum. Shout out to Bacardi, man. That company make dope stuff. So that's all I'm really sipping, nothing crazy. And no, I'm not getting no money from that. So that's what I'll be sipping while I do this podcast. Word. And you know, you would think that people would be on it. But yo, y'all ain't tell me that Fresh Kid Ice from 2 Live Crew passed away, man. Like he was like 53. I didn't know he was 53 though. I thought he was still in his 40s. Anyway, Fresh Kid Ice is part of the controversial hip hop group, the 2 Live Crew, in the 90s. And they had some hits, yo. They had some joints. They had some party joints. And you know what? Let me say this: being from New York, I initially hated on them because I was like, this is whack, you know. But when I got stationed in Florida, you really gained an appreciation for what we call bass music back then. But they had, what was the name? Me So Horny, which Me So Horny is very ethnocentric and very controversial in its own right? But mind you, they got that sample from a movie, right? Like one of them Vietnam movies. I think it was Full Metal Jacket. But anyway, they were the first hip hop group to have the parental advisory sticker slapped on their first album. So, shout out to, and then, Luke and them ended up going to court because of their lyrics and stuff like that. It was a crazy time, and it actually, really showed how racist motherfuckers were. And busted, Al Gore's wife, Tipper Gore, right? She was the people that spearheaded that parental advisory sticker thing. Like, she was on that really hard. So, y'all always like to act like Al Gore is on our side, but nah, man, he be doing some suspect stuff. But anyway, shout out to Fresh Kid Ice, man. Like, rest in peace and word is born. Also, I would like to make a quick correction. When I recorded last week's episode 3, I talked about Dr. Umar Johnson, and I said that he wasn't a doctor. Like 2 days after I recorded that and posted it, 2 days after I recorded it, and I didn't post it until Friday. I had recorded it around Tuesday, and that Thursday, TheRoot.com came out with an article where they were like, yeah, he actually is a doctor. He does have 6 degrees, and they were able to confirm that. So I'm just putting that out there. I decided to go ahead and post that one because I just wanted to keep it real. You know what I'm saying? I said it. You know what I'm saying? And I apologize if I mix anybody up. Whether he's a doctor or not, it still doesn't change the way I feel about him and how he gets down. Because you can still have degrees and still be an asshat, right? So just putting that out there. Don't come. Watchy. Too much choppy. Junior Gone did it again on that joint, right? Oh, with that bam. MC is my ambition, right? Yo, I'm still digesting that Jay-Z 444 joint, and I peeped that he got No ID. No ID did all the production on it. For those of you that don't know, No ID is a Chicago producer who's been putting in work for years. He actually was he used to mess with Common and all of them. And I remember really, if you really want to, he did his thing. This is on 444, and I think because Jay-Z got the dough, he was able to sample mad stuff for that. But if you want to hear some really dope stuff he did, check out Common's One Day It'll All Make Sense. That's when he had to drop the last name. He used to be Common Sense. And then some reggae group out of California, say you can't use that. And they took him to court. So he had to drop the Sense. So he was Common. But that first album, that not the first, but his third album, but it was the first time he couldn't use common sense. And he had this joint called, the album is called One Day It All Makes Sense. And No ID did that whole joint. No ID did most of his production up until then. But that joint was like pivotal, like that joint, like I could listen to the album all day. And No ID did his thing, Thizzle. Then No ID did a lot of other stuff with a lot of other cats, but to me that was like his best work. So this 444 joint, he did his thing. I really appreciated it. I wish Jay-Z had rhymed more on it. You know, he dropped jewels, usually Jay-Z. I wish he had rhymed more on it. And I could tell that he was really on that I'm not going to write nothing down tip. So a lot of the verses are like, they're not really verses, which, you know, I shouldn't like try to like put people in a box because they're not really like traditional, you know, 16 bars. You know what I'm saying? They're not that traditional. He might do 8 bars, stop, then do 4, stop, and then do 3. You know, so I think that's really dope that he did that. I mean, I just wish that he just rhymed straight, but because that's the Jay-Z that I'm used to. But anyway, so far I'm feeling No ID's production, and I wish that certain cats would have that type of freedom to just sample shit like that, like, 'cause that's what really makes that album dope. Word. Also, like sapiosexual, right? That's like being attracted to somebody, you know, like how they think and how they act, like, you know, how they get down, you know what I'm saying? And a lot of people be like, yo, I'm a sapiosexual. But then when I check their dating history, I be like that emoji that has his hand under his chin. You know what I'm talking about? Like, a lot of y'all be talking that, man. Y'all really don't like sapiosexuals, man. Yo, let's be honest, man. A lot of y'all say y'all like walks on the beach. A lot of y'all say y'all like to sit in coffee shops and just talk. But you know that if somebody was to like, hey, let's go on a date to get coffee, you're going to be like, man, you cheat, right? You know, if we say, hey, let's go for a walk, you're going to be like, man, you cheat. So stop fronting on that, for real, for real. So I probably won't do this segment for a few episodes because I realize that I'm just stacking stuff. And like I'll read like the first 100 pages and then I'll pick something else up and then I gotta finish reading stuff. Anyway, these 2 books, one of them is by Dr. Stacey Patton called Spare the Kids, Why Whipping Children Won't Save Black America. So far, it's tremendously dope. I slept on her because I used to follow her on Twitter. But yo, so far this book is dope. Highly recommend it, especially if you're a parent or you're considering being a parent or you're considering being an educator. So that is a dope book. And then I'm reading on the fiction side, Grim Death and Bill, The Electrocuted Criminal. And this is by Mike Mignola, who does Hellboy. He's been doing Hellboy for Dark Horse for like ever. And he's done other stuff. And his writing is like really, really dope. Like, I'm not a big Hellboy fan, but I like a lot of his stuff. Mike Mignola, that is. And also Thomas Snigoski is the co-writer on this. It's so dope. It's a period piece, takes place during the Depression era. And it's like really eerie. So I definitely recommend those. Check them out. And again, I probably won't have this segment for a couple of eps until I finish these books. Yes. Yo, remember that song by Cool G Rap called Ill Street Blues? When he was like, buck, 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 take that with you on the way down. Yo, that was crazy, right? Ill Street Blues, that was actually a dope album, man, on Cool G Rap. Word.
As I come back, bullets with best don't look like Aquafina trash, nigga. These shots will swell you bigger than Katina ass, nigga. Got couple left for opio and A+. Watch how the gauge bust. As I come back, hey Bobolina, Mr. Bob Dobalina ass nigga. Back to get quicker and then I spit him at.
I said I was going to talk about this, I think it was in episode 1. Why mixtapes today are not really mixtapes, right? So, and I got to go through a little bit of history for y'all, right? So, like, back in, the late 70s, early 80s, a lot of hip-hop artists in New York City, in the 5 boroughs or the tri-state area of New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut, they, a lot of that stuff was in the street. It was in the park. So you couldn't, it wasn't being played on the radio, right? So, Cold Crush and all of them, you know, Grandmaster Flash and all of them, like they, you know, Cool Herc and the Herculoids, they recorded everything on cassette tapes, and then they would sell them, and then people would buy them and they would take it home, and people, that's how people listen to them. And you know, later on you learn that, you know, people in California, Chicago, you know, down south, DC, all that, they were getting that from their cousins, right? So that was kind of like, I wouldn't call those a mixtape, but that's where the idea came from, right? So then in New York City later on, and later in other cities started doing this, you had DJs that would make these mixtapes. And that's how they promoted themselves, right? And I know like Kid Capri used to do it, DJ Ron G, you know, DJ Chubby Chub, you know, later on DJ Clue. And they would take cassette tapes and they would take like hit songs and they would take like the instrumentals and blend them with the vocals of another song, you know, because back then the vinyl records, they would have like the regular version. They might have an extended version. On the other side, they'll have like the instrumental and they'll have the acapella. So DJs used to take that and they used to blend and they used to mix the songs, hence the mixtapes, right? So they'll make these mixes and blends. Some people call them blend tapes, and they will sell them, right? Later on, as it progressed, like towards the late 90s, and DJ Clue was like probably one of the people that started doing it, it became a thing where they would just put exclusive songs. They might mix a little bit, they might blend a little bit here and there, but a lot of DJs started just putting exclusive songs that weren't out yet. This is before like the internet got big. So really, in essence, at that time, they weren't really mixtapes then, because they weren't really, most of the time, they weren't really mixing anything. So that was going on, and people just started putting exclusive stuff, right? Then after that, it evolved, right? Because now people started putting stuff on CD, right? And then it's kind of like, that's not a tape. I know I'm being anal retentive when I say that. It's not actually a tape, it's a CD, right? Which we don't even use anymore. But still, instead of mixing, what would happen is a lot of artists in between albums, they would take like the instrumentals of hit songs that are out, and they will rhyme over it with their crew. So they were like, you know, some of it was freestyle, some of it was written. They might throw some exclusive stuff on there, right? But it was really, to me, and you know, again, we could debate it. They're more like promotional, you know, records. I want to say, I don't even want to say records. They're promotional songs, right? It was promotional. Just while they were still working on their next album, they were doing these songs with their people on the road, and they would take like a hit record and they would, you know, rhyme over that, and they were like, oh, that shit is hot, right? So again, they're not traditionally mixtapes. I don't know why we keep calling them that, because they really take away from what they actually were. And yes, you still have DJs that blend. Shout out to them. And I know now they call them mashups, right? Now white folks call them mashups. They did a mashup, you know. And you know, back then we just called it blends or mix, and that's how we got down. So again, I always hear, when I hear artists say, "Oh, I got a mixtape out," I'm kind of like, it's not really a mix, you know. I feel what you're saying. You know, just call it what it is, a promotional joint. That's all it is, right?
This is a man's world, but it would be nothing without. This is a man's world.
Part 3, Part 3C, zip line McCarthy, heavy on the list. You blink my ice ring. John Green, yeah, that's small.
Back to everyone's favorite segment, how to approach women. Now, we're going to go ahead and jump right into it. The first 3 episodes, we did a lot of preliminary stuff. Just real quick, like, and this is something I learned when I was mad young, right? Because I would be chilling, and I would see, like, older heads, like, they would, you know, when I was a young Thundercat, right? Well, actually, a young Wiley Kid. Right, young Wiley Kid, and I would see these kids, and they weren't old. They weren't like older cats. They were just like in their 20s, and they would come up to women, and they would just say the flyest shit. They just be like, you know, bam, 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 and the girls would be like, oh, I gotta give them my number. I'd be like, damn, they just dropped it. So like, I kind of wanted to be like them. So then like, I would try to say fly lines, and it would just backfire, man. I would just embarrass myself, man. And I would keep trying, and then I would go home and just write lines and stuff like that, and then try to use it. And yo, it just ain't work for me, man. I ain't got it like that, man. I just really don't. And I realize that a lot of us try to do the same thing, you know what I'm saying? And it just doesn't work, man. So people be like, well, how do you actually approach someone? My thing is, yo, keep it simple. Keep it mad simple. Excuse me, my name is so-and-so. How are you? That's it. Like, I know it sounds corny. I know it sounds like, man, you tripping. But yo, really? And when I say this, I'm not a woman. I never had that experience. But I'm pretty sure that if she's good looking and she has been outside for an hour, I'll say 30 minutes, she's probably heard it all. She's probably heard the flyest cats or the not so fly cats say fly stuff, and she wasn't having it. You know what I mean? Just be yourself. Just walk up, introduce yourself, ask that person how she's doing, etc., and just keep it like that. Like I'm telling you, it just means so much if you just keep it simple. Don't try to be fly. Don't try to be like Big Daddy Kane. Don't try to be like, Orange Juice Jones. Yo, just go in there and, introduce yourself, ask how they doing, and then just start your conversation from there. But once you try to do all that fly stuff, and I'm not saying that there's people that can't do it. There are people that can do that. I'm pretty sure it took practice, right? And look, I'm a pretty confident person, man. I can go talk to anybody. I'm pretty confident in that. But that's not me, being the fly cat that says the fly stuff. I'm a fly cat. Don't get me wrong. I'm a fly dude. I'm not even gonna try to front. But saying the fly stuff is not me. I can hold a conversation. You know what I'm saying? Which is a topic for another day. Right? Being able to hold a conversation. But keep it simple. Don't try to be fly. I hope this helps. I see a lot of people and hear a lot of people say, oh, I wish I lived in a time when people wrote letters. I wish I could receive mail from people. Oh, I wish I could get postcards and everything. And the ill thing is, none of these people write letters, right? And look, I'm an older cat. I know I say that like 50 times per episode. I remember a time when we didn't have cell phones. I remember a time we didn't have emails, and you kind of like had to write letters. So when I was a kid in high school, I had pen pals. When I went to the Navy, I wrote letters. And this is also before satellite phones, because there was a time we had satellite phones and long distance cards. Remember those long distance phone cards they used to have? They used to have like credit cards that were like for making long distance calls. That's crazy, right? Can't even imagine that right now, right? So I remember like when I was in the Navy, you'd be out to sea, you would write a letter, it'll get to that person in a couple of days and they'll write you back. And it'll get to you in a couple of days. If they sent it like right away, right? So really it was like a 2-week turnaround, before you got a response. So things were just slow. But let me just break a couple of things down first before we blame everything on social media, right? You could write 10 people, right? You know what I mean? Like you could write, your moms, your significant other, your man, your homie, your one of your siblings or whatever, like people that in your inner circle, right? And then you write, you start writing different people in the periphery, right? Let's say we had a list of 10 people and you wrote them, boom, you wrote them 2-3 page letters, right? Boom, right? You were lucky if you got 3 letters, 3 people to reply to you. You were lucky. Like that was just the way it is, right? You were just lucky that 3 people out of those 10 will write you. So we like to think, because of nostalgia, right? Because, nostalgia is a crazy drug. We like to think that back then everybody wrote each other. That's not true. Again, you could have had 10 people that you wrote, you probably get 3 letters. You know what I mean? Now I will say that people that were usually older wrote you because they just appreciated it, right? But most people were like, I see you when I see you. They get the letter, and then when you see them, you're wondering if you got the letter, right? Because again, you couldn't just email or text somebody, say, hey, did you get my letter? You have to wait till you saw them again, and they'd be like, oh yeah, I got your letter from back in March, and you'd be like, oh dad, he didn't write me. So that's just how it was. So let's get that out the way. And then, you had satellite phones, and then you had like phone cards, and you can call people. So fewer and fewer people just started writing because technology just made more sense, right? And we had sat phones on our ship. You can just call people from the sat phones as long as you pay for it. Sat phones is short for satellite phones, right? But then you get in time, there'll be long distance phone cards. Then you had prepaid long distance phone cards, which are actually cheaper because the phone cards, they, just like credit cards, they had interest rates and they made things higher, right? So you buy those prepaid phone cards, boom, get the $10, $15, $25 and you can make all kinds of phone calls. At a certain point, those phone calls were like 1 cent per minute, and you had a $25 phone call, you was the man. So that's just how things work. So, and then email came and kind of changed the game, and people would just send email to each other. So again, to this day, you can email 10 people and you probably get like 2 to 3 people to respond, if that. So we need to stop saying that it's a social media thing. It's a people thing. It's what people, and I'm not saying that just because you write this person, they don't write you back, they consider it. Never said that. It's just that, people, priorities, what's their priority? What do they have time for? What do they make time for? Right? What do they make time for? Do they make time to sit down and read their emails and send it out? You guys work at a regular job, I hope. You have a 9 to 5, you get emails. A lot of people don't respond. You can email somebody about something that's important, they might not respond. So let's not look at it as a social media thing. Don't look at it like a nostalgic thing that back then people did those kind of things. Everybody ain't get down like that. Just want to leave that out there. And if you really want to write people, write them a letter. Hey, if you want to write me, go ahead and do it, man. Hit me up on my DMs on Twitter at Dan Trezomi or at Omi's podcast, OMIS podcast. So do that. I'll write you. I got some pen pals still out there. Y'all know who you are. And I do owe some of y'all some letters. Yo, shout out to the cats that can still Slapbox. Remember those days? I mean, I know this is like in the 80s. We used to go outside and Slapbox. And a lot of times they would end up turning into fights, right? It's something that even at 44, I still do every now and then. I Slapbox with cats, tap my elbows, like 52 hand block style. But I think it's dope and you kept your skills sharp. A lot of it wasn't fun, but sometimes it would turn into like a real fight. But that's some real warrior shit. Really test your skills. So like I said, I still Slapbox here and there. I threw in some of that Wing Chun. If y'all ever see me get down, I threw in some of that Wing Chun. So it's all martial arts. I know we don't like to value our own stuff, but Slapbox really taught me how to value our own stuff, how to really value how it's martial arts, man. It's martial culture, man. That's how we get down, and that's something that I pass on to the babies. So it's real, man, for real warrior shit. Shout outs are in order, of course. First of all, shout out to Reign of April on Twitter. She's known as @Reign of April. If you don't know who that is, we can't be homies. Shout out to Joan Morgan for being on that interview she did for that Mogul podcast about. And if you haven't checked that out, Mogul is done by the people that bought the Combat Jack show to you. And if you don't know who Joan Morgan is, again, we don't want to be talking. She's dropped a lot of jewels in there. Also, I want to give a shout out to everybody in Dayton, Ohio who supports my podcast. I got mad love for y'all. I really, really appreciate the city of Dayton for really embracing me. Here I am, a New York implant, and y'all really looked out for me. So there you have it, party people. That was it, episode 4, man. I hope y'all really enjoyed it. Really, again, send the feedback to my Twitters, either at Omi's podcast, and that's OMIS podcast. And you can also send it to my original one, my big one. Everybody's on that one, at Dan Trezomi, DANTRESOMI. Again, if you have any feedback, any questions, anything you want me to talk about, go ahead and do that. Peace.